Well, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Supporting a Feeling Life. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Yasmeen.
Today we're going to be talking about self-love and what it really means. It's often a term that gets talked about a lot. People kind of recognise it's important, but it's not always easy to actually recognise what they translate into.
And we want to look today at how it's important to know how to love yourself so that you know what you're worthy of, deserving of from someone else. How to be loved.
When Yasmin and I were talking about today's subject, one thing that I know I became well aware of was how so often we kind of grasp this concept of self-love. So many of my clients, when I talk to them about the sources of love, which we've talked on in other episodes, one thing that people say so commonly is, "Oh, well, I need to love myself." And one of my replies has sometimes been that can be tricky when you don't like yourself very much. And so this sort of like a large collection of self-help books in your library that you've read and sort of know that they speak to you, following through on it and actually discovering how to translate that into something that's really real and life-changing for you is not always so easy. So what do you advise, my dear, since I've watched you do this so well?
Oh, thank you. Self-love and self-care are really connected. How we take care of ourselves physically, how we look after our feelings, how we express what we feel, what we need, asking for things that are important to us, and also really looking at what self-love means to us. Is it possible to put yourself first occasionally, ahead of a busy routine or busy demands? That's an act of self-love and care. Eating healthy food, taking care of your routine each day, feeling the balance is very, very important. But as Jonathan said, if you haven't felt good enough, if you feel judged or criticised and you've received messages about you that you find difficult to sit with or reconcile or even accept, it's important to question, simply because liking who you are, loving yourself, is about recognising your qualities and the things you value and the things you're good at and feeling good about that.
So it can be difficult to follow through if the louder noise, the louder voice is what you've experienced from the outside.
It can be difficult because you may come up against I can't, I shouldn't, I don't deserve. And the only voice that really matters in the end is yours. And really listening to yourself and to what really does matter to you. Otherwise we end up turning to all sorts of other ways that aren't really very good for us to try and meet a need.
I think what I'd really like to encourage with this is that we also understand that love is actually the basis of the truth of what we carry inside of ourselves. Love is what we're part of. Love is the sort of frequency and the vibration that everyone, when they're honest with their needs, know they want to feel. And I think it's this kind of when our actions that you've mentioned about self-care and self-love and the way we kind of feel on the inside and the way we think about ourselves all kind of start to align.
They do.
But I suppose it means making it count on a daily basis. So that means coming back to those basics.
It does. It's about having a good, healthy boundary where others are concerned. Also ensuring that you're not too hard on yourself. If you've been criticised, you learn to be critical of yourself. And too often people are looking to be perfect, which I believe personally is a human impossibility.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're absolutely enough as we are. So it really does come back to the basis of knowing that we are connected to a divine source of energy, that we come from love, that love lives within us, nourishes us every day. And if we can identify and recognise those sources of nourishment for ourselves, then it is an act of love. It's an act of love within.
So it's this alignment that we're encouraging you, we're learning to live, this alignment where this truth, this force of energy that we're part of really shows up in the way you you look after yourself in the day. So what gets in the way of this? What really stops us from acting from this place? I think it's a question that we really all need to ask ourselves. I see all the time that it's really those loud voices that Yasmeen's mentioned already, of where people feel so kind of like they've lost themselves to these lies that they've picked up over their life, which so often haven't come from a voice of love. One thing I say to people is, if anyone is speaking to you in anything other than kindness, compassion, thoughtfulness, understanding, if they're speaking to you in any other way other than care for who you are, then it's kind of all about them. But that's really hard to really understand when you're 10 years old.
Absolutely. As a child, we're really reliant on the love our parents have for us. And if they never felt very loved, then it's very difficult for them to convey that love. In many ways, people put off self-love by caring for others, knowing how to love others, putting energy into what others need so that they feel good enough, but then end up disappointed when that love doesn't start coming back towards them.
So that's the trade that we see so often happen, where we look to unconsciously sometimes a little bit consciously, but there's that kind of manipulation that occurs where we look to please others, or we look to seek the well-being of others as something that will kind of wash back towards us.
It's a measure of good enough as well.
It is, and it's a risky thing to do, because you're measuring your standard of acceptability and your standard of self-love according to what that person genuinely holds. And they can be pleased with you and they can be happy with you, but I think we've all learned that doesn't last very long. So we want to help you understand what can be sustainable, ongoing acts of self-love, because it's this measure that sends out the frequency and the vibration that sets the standards of how others treat you. Now, this is really important, and probably something that really needs to be overstated, if anything, is that we, and the way we hold ourselves inside and the feeling of care for ourselves, absolutely vibrates with a frequency which is the boundary you spoke of.
Absolutely. And I know, because people often tell me that they begin to support themselves, they love themselves, they have good boundaries, and they're aware of what's okay and what's not okay. And if you really feel good about yourself, if others don't feel so good about themselves and they don't practice self-love, they can be a little bit reactive to you, and that can be discouraging. So it can feel as though, if I love myself, I think a bit too highly of myself, or that might be the message conveyed.
That's a really, really important point, because when we really step into this journey of self-care and self-love, it will challenge those who have an expectation of you, who have grown comfortable with the way that you have perhaps succumbed to their more bullyish behaviour, perhaps, or more verbose demands. And the act of self-love is often the act of saying no, and the act of standing up for yourself. And this won't always sit well with people who have grown used to the comfort that you've brought them in one way or another. So don't expect that stepping more into this energy is going to naturally create a wonderful sort of aura of loving people around you. That's not how this works. What it is going to do, it's going to start really clearly defining and shifting the understanding of who really meets you in that same energy or not.
One amazing source of unconditional love, which I believe is a real key to self-love, is being able to receive love freely in an unconditional way from a source that is not limited, is to really turn to, as we were saying last episode, sources of spiritual love or divine love, nature, to really feel how freely life energy will give to us, and to know that we are completely accepted. So an act of self-love is self-acceptance, of beginning where you are, even if you have goals that you wish to heal your heart, really heal the pain, feel better inside, do things differently. begin with self-acceptance and know that as you are right now, you are enough and you really are worthy of love.
And as this grows, it becomes something beautiful, and it fills you with a feeling that goes beyond the concept. It's not just what you know is right, you really feel it inside, and it becomes even easier to share this feeling with those around you who are also open to receive it.
Absolutely. And it allows you to recognize that at any moment, at any time, that unlimited source of love is not going to say, you didn't do well today, so you can't have this. It's just going to be available at any moment, 24 hours of the day. And that's quite something. So if we're very fortunate and we've been loved in our family, we will know that family will be there for us with the ups and downs, and good friends will be there in that way. The divine sources of love is another energy, yet again, in unconditionality.
Kind of like the ultimate fantasy family and fantasy friend group, really.
That loves you as you are.
And it doesn't matter if you messed up today. It doesn't matter if you messed up yesterday, because the sun's going to rise tomorrow, and kind of with it is this invitation once more for you to step back into that alignment, to that deeply known feeling inside that actually does know what's right for you. So
Absolutely.
self-love ultimately is an act of listening to your feelings and really listening to your sensitivity.
Absolutely. And self-care, really caring for how you feel, really caring for your well-being, caring for the food you eat, caring for the company you keep, the things that nourish you, having a clear sense of what isn't good for you, really listening to this is an act of love for you.
So we hope you have enjoyed this episode on self-love. We hope it reminds you of what you've always known inside, and can maybe put to rest some of those noises and voices which actually don't meet that truth of loving energy inside of you.
And remember, right now, this very moment, regardless of the thoughts in your head, regardless of the anxiety or the feelings that don't go away, you are enough right now and worthy of love.
So till next time, take care of yourself and stay close to your feelings.
Bye for now.